Lights, camera, drama. Leave a like and subscribe for more stories full of drama and betrayal. And don't forget to comment what you would do in our protagonist's situation. When the perfect life shatters in 3 words, he stood before her, the architect of her perfect life, and with 3 words, he completely tore it down. I'm leaving you. Joanna felt the crystal goblet slip from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor, a perfect and violent metaphor for her heart. She was 7 months pregnant, expecting their son, the heir to the Gallagher fortune, a fortune her own family had helped build. But her husband, Dean Gallagher, had found a new partner, a wealthier heiress. He didn't just want a divorce, he wanted to erase her and their child. Tossed onto the street and penniless, she found an ally in the one man Dean feared most, his ruthless rival, Gabriel Vance. This is not just a story of betrayal. It is the story of how a mother's love, forged in the fire of ruin, and the promise of an enemy born of a forgotten debt, built a fortress around a child that the city's most powerful man would try to tear down and fail. The scent of morning coffee still floated in the air as Joanna touched Dean's shoulder, who was typing furiously on his laptop. The home office smelled of leather furniture and stately wooden shelves. But on that day, an electrical tension she couldn't decipher hung in the air. "Dean!" Her voice trembled slightly. Her cold hands held a small rectangular object, and her heart hammered against her ribs like a desperate bird trying to escape its cage. He looked up, annoyed by the interruption. His face, always so controlled, was now creased with an impatience she knew well. His fingers tapped a dry, rhythmic beat on the oak desk. "What is it? I'm in the middle of an important video conference." Joanna took a deep breath, tasting the metallic flavor of nervousness in her mouth. The silk of her blouse brushed against her skin as she approached. Her heels echoed on the marble floor like the beat of a frantic metronome. "I need to show you something." She held out the pregnancy test, her hands trembling imperceptibly. Dean's gaze fixed on the object, and she could see the exact moment he realized. The blood drained from his face, leaving him pale as paper. His breathing changed, becoming fast and shallow. "No!" The word was a harsh whisper. "This cannot be happening now." "Dean, I know we didn't plan this, but..." Joanna tried to touch his arm, but he pulled away abruptly, the leather chair squeaking with a sudden movement. "Didn't plan this?" He stood up sharply, his imposing height of almost 6.5 feet, making her feel even smaller. "Joanna, do you have any idea what this means? My company is in the process of a merger with a German multinational. I can't have a personal scandal now." The woody scent of his aftershave, which once calmed her, now seemed suffocating. Joanna's stomach churned. She didn't know if it was because of morning sickness or the cruelty of his words. "Scandal!" Her voice came out sharper than normal. "We're talking about our child, Dean." "Child?" He spat the word as if it were venom. "A complication I cannot allow. You know my family. You know the business world. I am single in everyone's eyes, and I need to stay that way until this deal goes through." Tears burned the corners of Joanna's eyes. She could taste the saltiness of them before they even fell. The curtain in the background moved gently with the air conditioning, casting dancing shadows on the wall. "You're asking me to..." She couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm asking you to deal with this discreetly." Dean sat back down, his fingers resuming his typing, as if nothing had happened. "I know a very private clinic. We can schedule it for next week." The sound of the laptop keys echoed in the heavy silence. Joanna felt the floor moving beneath her, as if she were on a boat in a stormy sea. "Dean, look at me!" He didn't lift his eyes from the screen. "Dean!" This time she shouted, and he finally looked at her, his dark eyes as cold as ice. "What do you want me to say, Joanna? That I'm going to drop everything, disappoint hundreds of employees who depend on me, and destroy years of work because of a mistake?" "A mistake? The word hit her like a punch to the gut. Is that what you see in our baby? I see reality. He stood up again, walking toward the window, his back tense under the Italian-cut shirt, drawing a rigid figure against the sunlight. I have responsibilities, commitments. I can't be a father right now. Joanna wiped her tears with the back of her hand, the rough movement against her sensitive skin. The ring Dean had given her for her birthday, a promise that one day they would marry, felt like a weight on her finger. And if I don't? What if I decide to have this baby? Dean turned slowly, and the expression on his face chilled Joanna's blood. It was the same cold, calculating look she had seen him use in business meetings to intimidate his opponents. Then, you'll do it alone. Well, it was good while it lasted. His words cut deeper than any knife. Joanna felt her heart shatter into a million fragments, each one piercing her lungs and making it difficult to breathe. She looked around the office, the photos of them together on the shelf, her coffee cup next to the computer, the books she had lent him. Everything seemed to belong to another life, another person. Okay, her voice came out surprisingly calm. You've made your decision. Joanna walked toward the door, each step echoing in the deadly silence. When she reached the entrance, she turned for the last time. Dean hadn't left the office. The sound of his typing continued to echo down the hall, relentless as a machine. Dean. He didn't lift his eyes. Don't ever look for me again. This time he looked up, and for a second, she thought she saw something different in his expression. Regret. Fear. But it was just a glimpse, quickly replaced by the cold mask of always. Joanna left the office, walked down the marble stairs for the last time, and headed to the bedroom they had shared for 2 years. His cologne clung to the Egyptian cotton sheets, a fragrance that now made her nauseous. She grabbed a suitcase and began pulling her clothes from the closet. Each piece held a memory. The blue dress from the first time he had taken her to meet an important client. The red one she had bought to surprise him on his birthday. The silk pajamas they wore on lazy Sunday mornings. As she folded the clothes, a tear fell onto the blue dress, creating a dark stain. Joanna quickly wiped it away and continued packing. 40 minutes later, she walked down the stairs carrying 2 suitcases. Dean hadn't left his office. The sound of his typing continued to echo through the hallway, relentless as a machine. At the front door, Joanna stopped and looked back one last time. The house she had considered her home for so long now looked like a marble and glass mausoleum, cold and empty, just like the man who inhabited it. She placed the suitcases in her car, her hands shaking, as she held the keys. The engine started with a gentle roar, and she drove slowly down the tree-lined driveway that led to the main gate. In the rearview mirror, she watched the house get smaller until it disappeared completely. Only then did she allow the tears to fall freely, wetting her face and running onto the leather steering wheel. If I was a weakness to him, she murmured, her hand instinctively going to her belly, for my baby, I will be a fortress. The city stretched out before her, full of possibilities and challenges. Joanna drove toward the future, leaving behind the man who had chosen business over love, money over family. She didn't yet know how she would do it, but one thing was certain. She would raise her child alone, with dignity and faith, and Dean Gallagher would discover too late what he had lost by letting her go. What do you think of Dean's behavior? Do you believe Lucia will be able to survive this alone? Share your thoughts in the comments. The price of dignity. The sweet aroma of fresh strawberries filled the small kitchen as Joanna cut fruit into small pieces. At 2 years old, little Maria swung her legs in her high chair, her dark eyes shining with anticipation. "Mommy, mango!" the little voice echoed through the cozy kitchen, making Joanna smile. The girl's rosy cheeks had traces of yogurt, and brown curls escaped from the ponytail Joanna had tied that morning. Joanna placed the strawberries on a plastic plate decorated with butterflies and sat next to her daughter. She had learned to appreciate comfortable, practical clothes, so different from the designer clothes she used to wear. "Good?" she asked, watching Maria chew with total concentration. "Good!" The little girl clapped her hands, splashing small pieces of strawberry across the table. Her chubby hands picked up another piece, bringing it to her mouth with the seriousness of someone performing an important task. Joanna laughed, a genuine sound that echoed off the walls. It was incredible how motherhood had changed even her laughter, once reserved and polite, now spontaneous and musical. She wiped her daughter's face with a soft cloth, feeling the velvety texture of her skin. The phone rang, and Joanna answered with Maria still on her lap. It was Catherine, her partner in the small digital marketing consultancy they had opened together. "Joe, we got 3 more clients today. The florist wants a full Mother's Day campaign." Catherine's enthusiastic voice came through the phone, mixing with the little noises Maria made while playing with the strawberry. "That's wonderful. Can we meet on Tuesday to discuss strategies? Maria will be at daycare." "Perfect." And Joanna, "Are you sure you don't want to hire a nanny? It would be easier to work." "I don't need one, Catherine. We're fine as we are." Joanna looked at her daughter, who was now trying to pull a lock of her brown hair. "Maria is my priority, and we managed to balance everything." After hanging up, Joanna took Maria to the living room. The space was cozy, with a soft beige sofa, a bookshelf full of children's books, and toys organized in wicker baskets. The scent of lavender from the diffuser mixed with the natural aroma of the home. A fragrance of a true home. Maria crawled to her toy box and picked up a stuffed animal, a brown bear Joanna had bought when she was still pregnant. The little girl hugged the teddy bear, making a satisfied sound that melted her mother's heart. "Bear," Maria murmured, pressing the toy's nose against her face. Joanna sat on the fluffy rug next to her daughter, watching her every move with fascination. It was impressive how such a small child could have such a strong personality. Maria was determined, curious, but also affectionate and sensitive. Qualities that Joanna recognized, but which came mixed with other characteristics that made her swallow hard. The intensity of her gaze when Maria concentrated on something, the way she frowned when she was thinking, the determined way she gathered her toys. It all reminded her of someone Joanna was trying to forget. The sound of rain began to beat against the window, creating a soft symphony that always calmed Maria. The little girl dropped the bear and crawled to the window, placing her small hands on the cold glass. The drops drew winding paths, and the girl's eyes followed every movement with fascination. "Water!" Maria tapped the window, leaving small marks on the glass. "That's right, rain!" Joanna approached, smelling the fresh scent of wet earth that came through the crack in the window. "Do you want to see better?" She picked up Maria and sat down in the armchair next to the window. The little girl snuggled perfectly in her arms, her warm body relaxing against Joanna's chest. They stayed there, watching the rain, the rhythmic sound creating an atmosphere of absolute peace. Joanna inhaled Maria's characteristic scent, a mixture of baby shampoo, talcum powder, and that unique aroma that all babies have. It was a fragrance that calmed her more than any therapy, that healed any pain of the day. "You know something, my love," Joanna murmured, stroking her daughter's soft curls. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me." Maria lifted her head, those dark eyes studying her mother's face with childish seriousness. Then she smiled, a gap-toothed grin that showed only 4 small white teeth like pearls. "Mommy?" The word came out like a whisper, but it carried so much love that Joanna felt her eyes fill with tears. She kissed her daughter's forehead, feeling the soft, warm skin against her lips. In moments like these, Joanna wondered how she had managed to live so long without knowing this kind of love. An unconditional, pure love that asked for nothing in return but affection and care. The apartment was silent, except for the sound of the rain and Maria's rhythmic breathing, who was starting to fall asleep. Joanna continued to rock her gently, watching her daughter's eyelids grow heavy. Over the past 2 years, she had discovered a version of herself she didn't know existed. A strong, independent woman, capable of building a dignified life from scratch. She had created a successful business, raised a wonderful girl, and found a genuine happiness she had never experienced. Of course, there were challenges. Sleepless nights when Maria was sick, the constant worry about finances, the loneliness that sometimes struck her when she put her daughter to bed and was left alone in the living room. But every difficulty had strengthened her resolve. Every overcome obstacle had increased her confidence. Maria fell completely asleep, her face relaxed and angelic. Joanna stood up carefully and carried her to her room. The light pink walls were decorated with hand-painted clouds, and a mobile of golden stars swung gently over the crib. She placed her daughter on the soft mattress, covering her with a cotton blanket decorated with butterflies. Maria sighed contentedly, turning onto her side and hugging a small heart-shaped pillow. Back in the living room, Joanna poured herself a cup of chamomile tea, the aromatic steam rising in lazy spirals. She sat down on the sofa with a book, but ended up just looking out the window as the rain continued to fall. Sometimes, especially on nights like that, she allowed herself to think about what might have been different. If Dean had reacted differently, if he had chosen love instead of fear. But she always came to the same conclusion. Maybe things had happened exactly as they should have. Maria didn't need a father who saw her as an obstacle. She deserved better, and Joanna had discovered that she was fully capable of giving her daughter all the love and structure she needed. The phone vibrated with a message from Catherine. "Joanna, I saw a story about Dean's company in a business magazine, a multi-million-dollar merger with the Germans. Do you want me to save the magazine?" Joanna quickly wrote back, "No need. That's not part of our lives." And it was true. Dean Gallagher belonged to the past, a closed chapter of her story. The present was Maria sleeping in her room, her business growing, the life they had built together. She finished her tea and went to check on Maria. The girl was sleeping soundly, her lips slightly parted in a serene smile. Joanna adjusted the blanket and whispered, "I didn't need him, my love, but you deserve to know who your father was." The phrase came out before she could stop it, echoing in the quiet room. It was a truth Joanna carried in her heart, not for her own sake, but for Maria's. Every child had the right to know their origins, even if the father was not worthy. Joanna knew that one day she would have to make a decision about it, but for now, she and Maria were fine. More than fine. They were happy, complete, and thriving. The rain had stopped and the full moon shone through the parting clouds. Joanna closed Maria's room door and prepared for bed, with a heart at peace and the certainty that she had made the right decisions. Somewhere in the city, Dean was probably celebrating his multi-million-dollar merger, surrounded by executives and expensive champagne. But here, in that cozy apartment, Joanna had something infinitely more valuable. The pure and genuine love of her daughter, the return of the undone. The shopping center in the city center buzzed with the typical Saturday afternoon crowd. The aroma of cinnamon from the cookie kiosks mixed with the perfume from the cosmetics stores, creating an olfactory symphony that filled the wide, bright corridors. Joanna pushed the stroller slowly, watching Maria point animatedly at the colorful shop windows. "Mommy, look!" Maria clapped her hands when she saw the toy store window, where giant teddy bears performed a mechanical dance. Her dark eyes sparkled with delight, and her brown curls bounced with every movement of her head. Joanna smiled, feeling the light fabric of her navy blue dress dance against her legs as she walked. It was rare to have a Saturday off to go out without commitments, and she had decided to take Maria to the mall, something the girl hadn't experienced yet. "Do you want to see the toys up close?" Joanna parked the stroller in front of the window, watching her daughter's illuminated face. Maria tried to get out of the stroller, stretching her little arms toward the toys. Her pink dress with a floral print swung with her anxious movements, and her white shoes kicked the air with excitement. "Slowly, princess. We can go to the store after our snack." Joanna adjusted her daughter's bangs, feeling the silky texture of the curls between her fingers. They continued walking along the main corridor, Maria absorbing every detail of the new environment. The background music played softly, mixing with the conversations of other visitors and the distant noise of the food court. Joanna stopped in front of a children's clothing store, admiring a small yellow dress in the window. Maria was growing so fast that she constantly needed new clothes. She mentally calculated the budget. The business was doing well, and she could afford to spoil her daughter from time to time. "How about this little dress, my love?" Joanna pointed to the piece in the window. Maria followed her mother's finger, but her gaze was distracted by something more interesting. A group of children running near the ornamental fountain, which was in the center of the mall, began to stir in the stroller, wanting to get down to explore. Joanna looked around, assessing whether it was safe to let Maria walk a little. The area was busy, but there was enough space for a child to play under supervision. She took her daughter out of the stroller, holding her small hand firmly. "You can walk, but you have to stay close to Mommy, okay?" Maria nodded vigorously, already pulling Joanna toward the fountain. Her small, determined steps echoed on the marble floor, and Joanna had to speed up her own pace to keep up with her daughter's enthusiasm. The fountain was a work of art in itself. The water jets danced in synchronized patterns, creating a fascinating spectacle. Maria stopped abruptly, her mouth open before the aquatic display. A few drops splashed her lightly, cooling the air around her. "Water dance!" Maria exclaimed, trying to touch the jets that were out of her reach. Joanna laughed, gently pulling her daughter to a safe distance. "It really dances, doesn't it? It's beautiful." It was at that moment that she felt it. A familiar presence, an energy that made all the hairs on her arms stand on end. Her stomach involuntarily contracted, and her heart began to beat faster, as if her body recognized something her mind hadn't yet processed. Joanna slowly raised her eyes, scanning the crowd around the fountain, and then she saw him. Joseph Carlson stood about 60 feet away, near the entrance to the most expensive jewelry store in the mall. His dark gray suit, impeccably tailored, molded his tall, elegant silhouette, and his dark hair was perfectly combed, as always. But it was the expression on his face that chilled Joanna's blood. He was watching her, and his gaze was fixed on Maria. The world seemed to slow down. The noise of the fountain, the conversations around her, the background music. It all became a distant murmur. Joanna could only hear her own quickened breathing and the sound of blood pulsing in her ears. Joseph took a step forward. Then he stopped. Even at a distance, she could see that he was struggling with some intense emotion. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, and his jaw was tense in a way she knew well. That's how he looked when he was trying to maintain control. Maria, oblivious to the attention, continued to play near the fountain. She crouched down to touch the water that had collected on the edge, wetting her fingertips and laughing at the cold sensation. Maria showed Joanna her wet fingers, waiting for a reaction. "Yes, my love, the water is very cool," Joanna replied mechanically, without taking her eyes off Joseph. He had moved a few steps closer. Now he was close enough for her to see the details of his expression. His face pale, his eyes wide, the visible rise and fall of his chest due to his breathing. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost. Instinctively, Joanna lifted Maria, a protective movement that made the girl protest slightly. "Mommy, I want to play." "In a little while, princess. We're just—" Joanna didn't finish the sentence. Joseph was walking directly toward them, and she realized there was no escape. His cologne reached her before he even spoke. That woody fragrance she used to adore now turned her stomach. Joseph stopped about 6 feet away, looking as tense as she felt. "Joanna." His voice came out hoarse, as if it hadn't been used in a long time. Maria turned her head to look at the man who had spoken to her mother. Her dark eyes studied Joseph's face with a child's natural curiosity, without fear or recognition. Joanna felt her daughter's body relax against hers. Maria didn't know who he was. To her, he was just another stranger in the busy mall. "Joseph!" Joanna managed to pronounce his name, despite her throat being as dry as paper. He continued to look at Maria, and Joanna could practically see the thoughts organizing in his mind. The girl was about 2 years old, with brown hair and golden highlights, slightly tanned skin, and, most importantly, the eyes. "It's impossible," Joseph murmured, so low that Joanna barely heard him. Maria had exactly the same eyes as him, the same dark chocolate color, the same intensity, even the same slightly almond shape. The resemblance was impossible to deny. "Mommy, who is he?" Maria asked, still looking at Joseph with childish interest. The question hit Joanna like a punch to the gut. How could she explain to a 2-year-old that the man in front of her was the father who had rejected her existence before she was even born? "He's nobody important, my love." The words came out colder than she intended. Joseph flinched as if he had been slapped. He took another step forward, and Joanna instinctively backed away. "Joanna, can I talk to you?" "We have nothing to talk about." She adjusted Maria on her hip, preparing to leave. "Please!" The word came out as a desperate plea. "Just 5 minutes." Maria began to fidget in Joanna's arms, wanting to get down to continue playing. "Mommy, water!" Joanna looked around, noticing that some people had started to notice the tension between them. The last place she wanted to make a scene was in the middle of a busy mall. "Maria wants to play in the water," Joanna said coldly, "and we have other commitments." She started to walk away, but Joseph followed her. "Joanna, wait! Please, just tell me, is she—" Joseph began, but Joanna stopped abruptly and turned to face him. The anger that had been carefully controlled for 2 years began to bubble to the surface. "Is she what, Joseph?" Her voice was low, but laced with venom. "The mistake you asked me to deal with. The complication that could ruin your precious business." Maria felt the tension in her mother's body and began to squirm. "Mommy?" Joanna knelt immediately, softening her voice. "I'm sorry, my love. Mommy wasn't yelling. She was just talking." "Talking loudly," Maria corrected, with a child's merciless logic. Joseph approached, kneeling beside Joanna. "Maria, sometimes adults talk loudly when they are trying to solve important things. It's not because they are fighting." Maria looked between the two, her dark eyes processing the tension. "Are you sad?" "No, princess. Daddy just wants Mommy to know that he loves her very much." The words hit Joanna like a punch. She stood up quickly, moving away from both of them. "Maria, go finish watching your cartoon. Snack will be ready soon." The girl hesitated, clearly sensing the attention, but finally obeyed. Back in the living room, Joanna waited until she was sure Maria couldn't hear them, before turning to Joseph. "How dare you?" "Dare what? Say I love you in front of her? Use our daughter to manipulate me?" Joseph stood up slowly, the pain evident in his eyes. It's not manipulation, Joanna. It's the truth. The truth? Joanna laughed again, the sound harsh and wounded. Do you want to know what the truth is, Joseph? The truth is that you loved me when it was convenient, when it didn't threaten your plans, when I was just the pretty girlfriend who showed up at your business dinners. That's not true. The moment I became real, the moment our relationship produced real consequences, you threw me away like trash. The tears finally began to fall, burning Joanna's cheeks. And now, 2 years later, you decide you love me? That you want to be a father? How convenient, Joseph. Joseph took a step toward her, his hands outstretched. Joanna, I was a coward, an idiot, but I've changed. Changed? Joanna wiped her tears with a violent motion. The man who destroyed me 2 years ago is exactly the same one who just tried to buy my company behind my back. You haven't changed at all, Joseph. You still believe you can solve everything with power and money? You wanted to control me? Joanna exploded. You wanted me to depend on you, so you could dictate the terms of our relationship, so you could decide when and how to see Maria. Joseph stood silent for a long moment, his face pale. Finally, he said, "You're right." Joanna blinked, surprised by the admission. "You're right," Joseph repeated, his voice low and filled with regret. "I tried to control the situation. I tried to use money to fix something that money can't fix. That's exactly what I did 2 years ago, and it was wrong then, just as it's wrong now." Joanna crossed her arms, still on the defensive. "And what are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to cancel the offer immediately." Joseph pulled his phone from his pocket. "I'm going to call my lawyer right now." He dialed a number, and Joanna could hear his firm voice giving instructions to cancel any attempt to acquire her company. When he hung up, he looked at her with a vulnerability that Joanna was not prepared to see. "Joanna, I know I messed up. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve a second chance. But Maria," his voice broke. "Maria deserves a father who fights for her, a father who learns to be better." Joanna watched Joseph for a long moment. She could see the internal struggle in his eyes, the war between the man he always was and the man he was trying to become. "The man who destroyed me 2 years ago," she said finally, her voice low and tired, "is now teaching our daughter to smile." Joseph closed his eyes, as if her words were an absolution he hadn't expected to receive. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Joseph," Joanna continued. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. But Maria needs a father, and for some reason, I can't understand, she chose you." Joseph opened his eyes, and Joanna saw tears forming there. "Don't mess this up." Her voice was a threatening whisper. "If you hurt our daughter, if you disappear from her life like you disappeared from mine, I will make you regret it for the rest of your life." "Never," Joseph said with conviction. "I will never abandon Maria or you, no matter how long it takes. I will prove that I have changed." Joanna nodded slowly, exhausted by the conversation. "We'll see, Joseph. We'll see." The expensive scent of his mother's perfume filled the air-conditioned restaurant, mingling with the smell of flowers from the imported arrangements on the marble tables. Joanna nervously adjusted her navy blue dress, feeling the thin fabric against her skin, as she observed the elegant woman in front of her. Her mother's gray hair was impeccably combed, and her blue eyes, so different from Joseph's, studied Joanna with the coldness of a predator assessing its prey. "So, you are the woman who left my son pregnant." Her mother's voice cut the silence like a sharp blade, each word delivered with surgical precision. Joanna breathed deeply, inhaling the aroma of the lavender from the diffuser, which attempted to soothe the tension in the private room of the restaurant. "I am Joanna, and you must be Mrs. Carlson." "Mrs. Carlson to you." The correction came instantly, accompanied by a frosty smile that did not reach her eyes. "I imagine you know why I requested this meeting." Joanna crossed her legs under the table, the leather of the chair squeaking slightly with the movement. "Actually, no. Joseph didn't mention you wanted to meet me." Her mother laughed, a crystal-clear, empty sound, like the clinking of broken glasses. "My son has always been naive when it comes to women like you." "Women like me?" Joanna felt her blood warm up, but she kept her voice controlled. "Opportunists." Her mother savored the word as if it were an expensive wine. "Women who intentionally get pregnant by rich men to secure a comfortable life." The waiter approached discreetly, placing a glass of champagne in front of her mother and a natural orange juice in front of Joanna. The sound of the bubbles bursting in the champagne was almost hypnotic in the tense silence that settled between them. "You are mistaken." Joanna touched the edge of the cold glass slightly, feeling the condensation moisten her fingers. "I don't want anything from Joseph. I never did." "Of course not." Her mother took a delicate sip of champagne. "That's why you allowed him to get close to the child, out of the goodness of your heart." Joanna felt the anger bubbling up, but she forced herself to maintain her composure. "I allowed it because Maria has the right to know her father, no matter how much I disagree with his choices." "Maria," her mother repeated the name with disdain. "A common name for a child with Carlson blood. It's a beautiful name. It means wisdom." "Wisdom." Her mother laughed again. How ironic, considering the circumstances of her conception. Joanna clenched her fists under the table, her nails digging into her palms. The smell of food from other tables, truffles, grilled salmon, refined sauces, now made her nauseous. "Mrs. Carlson, if you have something to say, just say it. I don't have time for games." Her mother placed her glass on the saucer with a soft clink, but the sound echoed like a gunshot in the tense silence. "Very well, I will be direct. How much do you want to disappear from my son's life?" Joanna blinked, sure she had misheard. "Excuse me? 5 million? 10? Everyone has a price, darling. What's yours?" The world seemed to tilt to the side. Joanna felt the blood drain from her face, leaving her dizzy. The noise of the restaurant, low conversations, silverware clinking against plates, background music. It all became a distant hum. "You're offering me money to abandon my daughter? Don't be dramatic." Her mother waved her hand, her diamond ring sparkling under the chandelier light. "You can keep the child. I just want both of you to disappear from Joseph's life." Joanna stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the marble floor with a harsh sound. "Are you crazy?" "Sit down." Her mother's voice cut the air like a whip. "I'm not finished yet." "I am." Joanna grabbed her purse, but her mother continued to speak. "Joseph is making a mistake. This obsession with the girl is affecting his business. Yesterday he canceled an important meeting because she was sick. The day before, he left halfway through a video conference because you called him." Joanna stopped, turning slowly. "How do you know that?" "I know everything that happens in my son's life." Her mother smiled coldly. "And I know he's being selfish. Joseph has responsibilities. Hundreds of employees depend on him. The family business is at stake. The family business has always been more important than the family itself, hasn't it?" Joanna walked back to the table, but did not sit down. "Is that how you raised Joseph?" "I protected him from a mistake that could destroy everything we built." Her mother leaned forward, her blue eyes shining with a dangerous, calculating intensity. "And I'm going to protect him from you too. Joseph is an adult. He can make his own decisions. Joseph is a man, and men make stupid decisions when it comes to pretty women and cute children. Her mother took another sip of champagne, as if discussing the weather. But I think with my head, not with other parts of the body. Joanna felt nauseous. You are disgusting. I am practical. Her mother opened her leather purse and pulled out an envelope. $15 million in tax-free cash. All you have to do is sign this document, relinquishing all rights to Joseph and agreeing not to seek him out again. Joanna looked at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. And Maria? Joseph can visit the child sporadically at times that do not interfere with his professional commitments. I want to protect the future of the Carlson Company and, consequently, the future of the girl herself. If Joseph messes up the business due to this phase, Maria will have nothing. Joanna sat back down, but only to be at the same level as her mother. Do you want to know what I think? I'm listening. I think you're scared. Joanna leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. Scared that Joseph has finally found something more important than his mommy's approval. Her mother's face tightened slightly, the first crack in her perfect facade. Joseph has changed since he met Maria. Joanna continued to gain confidence. He's learning to be human, and that scares you, doesn't it? You don't know anything about my son. I know he's becoming a father for the first time in his life, and that is transforming him into the man he always should have been. Her mother slammed her hand on the table, making the glasses clink. Enough. You will accept my offer, or I will have to take more drastic measures. Drastic measures? Joanna felt a chill run down her spine. I can make your life very difficult, dear. Your small marketing company would be embarrassed if it lost all its clients at once, or if the tax authorities decided to perform an exhaustive audit. Joanna stood up again, this time with an iron determination. You just made a mistake. What mistake? You showed me who you really are, and now I'm going to tell Joseph exactly what kind of mother he has. Joseph would never believe I would do such a thing. I am his mother. Exactly. The mother who taught him that love is conditional, that family is negotiable, that money solves everything. Joanna grabbed the envelope and tore it in half, the pieces falling like confetti onto the elegant table. But you know what, Mrs. Carlson? Joseph is no longer that man. He is making a terrible mistake. The only mistake I made was underestimating how much you are willing to do to maintain control over your son. Joanna turned to leave, but stopped at the door. But Joseph will know everything, and when he knows, he will have to choose between the mother who always controlled him and the daughter who is teaching him to love. Joanna left the restaurant with her heart pounding, the fresh air of the street contrasting with the suffocating atmosphere of the place she had just left. Her hands trembled as she dialed Joseph's number. Joseph, is something wrong? Joseph, we need to talk. Now? Yes, where are you? Leaving Fasanos. My mother called me for lunch. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Joseph, I'm going to meet you. Don't move from there. While she waited, Joanna watched the traffic on the street. People walking quickly, cars passing, life happening normally. But for her, everything had changed in the last 40 minutes. The war for Joseph's soul had just begun, and his mother had just declared that she had no intention of losing without a fight. The terrifying question that now hammered in her mind was, would Joseph be strong enough to face his own mother? Or was the obedient son he had always been still stronger than the father he was learning to be? 20 minutes later, when Joseph's car stopped in front of the restaurant, and she saw the determination in his eyes, Joanna knew that the answer would define not only her future, but also Maria's. Do you think Joseph will choose his new family over his mother's approval? Share your thoughts in the comments. The choice. Joseph's office smelled of familiar leather and fine wood. But on that day, there was an electrical tension in the air that made every piece of furniture seem like a silent witness to a battle about to begin. His mother was seated in the velvet armchair, her gloved hands holding a porcelain cup with the icy elegance that had always characterized her. Joseph paced behind the oak desk, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor like the beat of a war drum. "You offered Joanna money to disappear from my life." Joseph's voice was too controlled, each word delivered with surgical precision. His mother took a delicate sip of her tea, the aromatic steam rising in lazy spirals. "I offered a practical solution to a problem that is destroying everything we built. Maria is not a problem." Joseph slammed his hand on the desk, making the glass picture frames tremble. "She is my daughter. She is a complication." His mother set the cup down on the saucer with a soft clink, but the sound echoed like a gunshot in the tense silence. "Joseph, you canceled 6 important meetings this month. The Germans are questioning your dedication to the business." Joseph stopped pacing, turning to face his mother. His gray suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened, signs of a man who had spent hours trying to process his mother's betrayal. "And what does that matter? There are more important things than business, Mother." His mother laughed, a crystal-clear sound that cut the air like broken glass. "More important? Joseph, you have responsibilities. 1,200 employees depend on you, shareholders who entrusted millions to your decisions. And my daughter depends on me too." Joseph approached the armchair, looking at the woman who had raised him with a mixture of love and pain. "For the first time in my life, someone needs me for who I am, not for what I own." "That's cheap romance." His mother touched her son's arm with false affection. "You are in love with the idea of being a father, not the reality. Children cry, Joseph. They get sick. They demand time, attention, sacrifices." "I know." Joseph crossed his arms, his muscles tense under the fabric of his shirt. "And I am willing to make every sacrifice necessary." His mother walked toward the panoramic window, watching the city stretch out below. The afternoon lights began to twinkle, creating a golden mosaic against the orange sky. "As your mother, it is my duty to protect you from impulsive decisions." Her voice echoed against the glass. "This woman manipulated you, Joseph. She used the girl to awaken your paternal instincts." "Joanna is not manipulative." Joseph approached the window, stopping beside his mother. "She refused me when I tried to get close. She refused my money, my help, everything." "A clever strategy." His mother turned to her son, her blue eyes shining with a calculating coldness. "Playing hard to get always works with men like you." Joseph felt something break inside his chest, an invisible bond that had tied him to his mother's approval for 35 years. Men like me, men who mistake responsibility for sentimentality. His mother touched her son's arm with false affection. "Joseph, you can support the child without getting emotionally involved. Pay her a generous allowance. Visit sporadically. That's enough." "Enough!" The word came out as a low roar. "Stop talking about my daughter as if she were a business commitment." His mother stepped back, surprised by the intensity of his reaction. "Joseph, don't." "Mother, now you will listen to me." Joseph turned completely to face her, his chest rising and falling with quick breaths. "Maria is 2 years old, and she already says my name. When she sees me, her eyes light up. She trusts me completely, without questioning whether I deserve it or not." The words came out laden with an emotion his mother had never seen in her son. Joseph continued, his voice growing firmer. "When Maria is sick, nothing else matters. When she needs me, I drop everything to be with her. And you know why? Because for the first time in my life, I understand what it means to love someone more than myself." His mother paled slightly, but maintained her upright posture. "That sentimentality will pass, Joseph. It's a phase." "It's not a phase!" Joseph exploded, years of emotional repression finally finding an outlet. It's who I always should have been. A man capable of putting family before profits. Family. His mother spat the word as if it were venomous. They are not your family, Joseph. Maria is my blood. Joanna is my daughter's mother. They are my family, yes. Joseph walked toward the desk, picking up a framed photo where he appeared next to Maria in the playground. And I will protect them. His mother looked at the photo with thinly veiled disgust. Protect them from what? From people like you? The words came out low, but filled with a determination that made his mother recoil another step. From people who think love is weakness, that family is negotiable. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the air conditioning and the distant traffic below. His mother studied her son's face, looking for signs of the obedient boy she had always controlled. Joseph, you are throwing away everything we built together for a fantasy. Her voice trembled imperceptibly. The company, the respect of your partners, your social standing. You can call me crazy. Joseph walked toward the office door, opening it in a clear gesture of dismissal. But this is my family. His mother stood still for a moment, stunned, processing the defeat. Then, with the wounded dignity of a deposed queen, she walked toward the door. You will regret this decision, Joseph. The only thing I regret is having taken so long to make it. His mother stopped at the entrance without turning around. When this romantic fantasy is over, when you realize that you gave up everything for nothing, don't come asking me for help. I won't need it. Joseph watched his mother's rigid silhouette. Because I finally found something that is worth more than your approval. His mother left without looking back. Her heels echoed down the hallway until they disappeared into the elevator. My mother just found out that she no longer controls me. He smiled for the first time in hours. And now? Joseph looked out the window, observing the city lights. Somewhere, Maria was playing, laughing, being the wonderful girl who had completely changed his life. Now I'm going home, to a real home. Joseph, I know you don't completely trust me yet. I know it will take time to rebuild everything I destroyed. Joanna's voice was soft, almost a whisper. Maria asked if you're coming home for dinner tonight. Joseph felt his chest tighten with emotion. Tell her Daddy is coming home. As he tidied the desk and shut down his computer, Joseph knew he had lost a lot in the last few minutes. His mother's approval, possibly some business deals, maybe even a piece of the company. But as he drove toward the apartment where Joanna and Maria were waiting, Joseph knew he had gained something infinitely more valuable. The opportunity to be the man his daughter deserved. I lost millions, he thought, as he stopped at a traffic light. But I got my world back. The eternal program. The scent of fresh roses mixed with the sweet smell of chocolate cake. Maria had insisted on helping decorate it. Joanna watched from the apartment window as the morning passed slowly. Her fingers nervously played with the hem of the cream-colored dress she had chosen for the most important day of their lives. 3 months had passed since Joseph's confrontation with his mother. And slowly, like flowers blooming after a harsh winter, they had rebuilt something they never knew could exist. A real family. Mommy, is Daddy coming soon? Maria ran toward Joanna, her pink dress with satin bows swaying with every step. Her curls were held by a small tiara of fake pearls, and her dark eyes sparkled with childish anticipation. Almost, my love. Joanna knelt to adjust her daughter's dress. Daddy just went to pick up Aunt Catherine. Maria frowned in concentration. Is Aunt Catherine going to cry again? Joanna laughed, recalling her partner's reaction when she heard about the marriage proposal. Catherine had cried so much that she had to redo her makeup 3 times. Maybe a little, but those are happy tears, princess. The doorbell rang, and Maria shot toward the door like a pink rocket. Daddy! Joanna opened the door, and her heart still skipped a beat at the sight of Joseph. He wore a light gray suit that enhanced his dark eyes and carried a bouquet of daisies, Joanna's favorite flowers, not the expensive roses he used to buy in the past. "Princess!" Joseph knelt to hug Maria, who threw herself into his arms with total enthusiasm. "You look beautiful." "You too, Dad?" Maria touched his tie with curiosity. "Is it a special day?" "The most special day of all." Joseph looked over his daughter's head, meeting Joanna's eyes. "Good morning, future wife." Joanna felt her cheeks flush. Even after 3 months, she was still surprised by the genuine tenderness in his voice when he called her that. Catherine appeared behind Joseph, her eyes already watering. "Joanna, you are radiant. Thank you for accepting me as your witness." Joanna hugged her friend, inhaling the floral perfume Catherine always wore. "As if I would miss it." Catherine discreetly wiped the corner of her eyes. "After everything you've been through." Joseph picked up Maria, watching the two women. "Are you ready?" "I think so." Joanna grabbed her small purse, checking that she had everything. Documents, Maria's ring that she had insisted on carrying, a handkerchief for the inevitable tears. They walked down to Joseph's car together. Maria chattered animatedly about how she had helped choose the flowers, while Joseph carefully buckled her into the car seat. Joanna watched the scene. The care with which he adjusted the seat belts, his endless patience with his daughter's questions, and she felt a wave of gratitude for having given this man a second chance. The civil registry was a simple building in the city center, without the ostentation Joseph had probably imagined for his wedding years ago. But when they entered the room, decorated with simple flowers and natural light, Joanna knew it was perfect. The judge was a kind-looking, middle-aged man who knelt to greet Maria personally. "And you must be Princess Maria. I hear you have a very important job today." Maria nodded seriously. "I'm going to carry the rings. A huge responsibility." The judge winked at her. "I'm sure you'll do a great job." They stood in front of the makeshift altar. Joseph held Joanna's hand. Their fingers intertwined like two pieces of a puzzle that had finally found their place. Maria stood between them, holding the small cushion with the rings. "We are gathered here today." The judge began the ceremony, but Joanna could barely concentrate on the words. She was lost in Joseph's eyes, seeing a mixture of love, regret, and hope that squeezed her heart. When it came time for the vows, Joseph cleared his throat nervously. "Joanna," he said. His voice trembled slightly. 3 years ago, I was a man who thought he knew what was important in life. I thought success was measured in money, that love was a luxury I couldn't afford." Maria lifted her head, fascinated by the seriousness in her father's voice. "You offered me the greatest gift anyone could give, a family, and I, the coward and idiot that I was, refused that gift." Joseph swallowed hard, containing his emotion. "But life gave me a second chance. It gave us a second chance." He looked at Maria, then back at Joanna. "I promise that I will never again put anything above our family. I promise to be the husband you deserve and the father our daughter needs. I promise that from now on, no matter what happens, you will always be my first place." Joanna felt tears streaming down her face. When it was her turn, her voice was choked with emotion. "Joseph, you hurt me deeply. For a long time I thought I could never forgive you. But Maria," she looked at her daughter, who was watching everything with wide eyes. "Maria taught me that true love is not perfect. It is strong." Joseph squeezed her hand tighter. "You showed me that people can change, that love can grow from suffering. I promise to give you the opportunity to be the man you want to be. I promise that we will build a family based on real love, not fear." The judge smiled broadly, clearly moved. "Now, the rings." Maria stepped forward solemnly, offering Joseph's ring to Joanna first. "For Daddy." Joanna slid the gold band onto Joseph's finger, her hands trembling slightly. When it was his turn, Joseph held Joanna's hand with an almost religious reverence. With this ring, he repeated the judge's words, but his eyes never left Joanna's. Now I pronounce you husband and wife. The judge smiled widely. You may kiss the bride. Joseph leaned in, touching Joanna's lips in a soft kiss, full of promises. Maria clapped her hands with enthusiasm. Now we're a real family, she shouted, making everyone laugh. Outside the registry, Catherine insisted on taking hundreds of photos. Maria posed with professional seriousness. Afterward, she ran off to play in the small garden, while the adults talked. And you? Can I talk to you alone? Of course, are you sure? After everything he did? Joanna watched Joseph playing with Maria, teaching her to make crowns with the daisies that had fallen to the ground. Catherine, the man who rejected me 3 years ago is not the same man who is standing there. People can change when they find something worth fighting for. And if he goes back to who he was? Joanna smiled, seeing Joseph place a crown of flowers on Maria's head, who laughed with delight. Then Maria and I will be strong enough to handle it. But I believe in him. I believe in us. They went to lunch at a small restaurant that Maria had chosen. A simple place that served the best mac and cheese in the city, according to her. Throughout the meal, Maria didn't stop talking, telling all the employees that her parents had gotten married. Now Daddy lives with us forever, she announced to a table of seniors, who smiled indulgently. When they got home, Maria was exhausted from all the excitement. Joseph carried her to her room, and Joanna followed, watching him help her change. Daddy, are you going to sleep here every night now? Maria asked, as Joseph combed her hair. Every night, princess, forever. And when I wake up in the morning, will you be here? Always. Joseph kissed his daughter's forehead. Daddy is not leaving anymore. Maria smiled sleepily. Good. I like it when there are 3 of us. After Maria fell asleep, Joanna and Joseph sat on the living room sofa, the comfortable silence filled only by the distant sound of traffic. Thank you, Joseph said suddenly. For what? For giving me a second chance, for believing that I could be better. Joanna snuggled against him, inhaling the cologne that she now associated with security and love. Joseph, from the cruel request to the miracle of reconciliation, love won. That was it, and this time it's forever. He hugged her tighter, kissing the top of her head. So it is. Outside, the rain began to fall softly, creating a background music for the beginning of a new life. A life where love had triumphed over fear, where a family had been born from the ashes of pain. And in the next room, Maria slept soundly, protected by the love of 2 parents who had finally learned that some things are worth more than any treasure in the world.